Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Officer Cadet Grace Becker. We welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students from Manildra Public School from Manildra, New South Wales. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thanks, students. Please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one of the stories from the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Gordon Herbert Cleaver. Gordon Cleaver was born on the 14th of July, 1895 in Traralgon, Victoria, the eldest of two children born to Robert Cleaver and his wife Emily. Gordon received his education at the local state school, where he was a member of the cadets program. After leaving school, he found employment as a storeman and volunteered in the local light horse militia. When the First World War broke out in 1914, Gordon could hardly wait to volunteer. Owing to ill health, however, he was prevented from doing so until August 1915, when he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at the age of 19. Assigned to reinforcements of the 7th Battalion, he began a short period of training in Australia. On the 29th of December, Private Cleaver embarked for active service from Melbourne, sailing on board the troop ship Demosthenes. When Cleaver arrived in Egypt in early 1916, he joined thousands of veterans from the recently abandoned Gallipoli campaign, as well as new recruits like himself. He continued training until March, when he was transferred to the newly formed 1st Australian Pioneers Battalion. Attached to the 1st Division, the Pioneers were responsible for engineering, construction, and repair work on the front. As trained infantrymen, they could also be called upon to fight. Soon after joining his new unit, Private Cleaver embarked for France, arriving in Marseille after a week-long voyage. He and his comrades were immediately sent north to the Franco-Belgian border, which had once been the site of heavy fighting, but was now relatively quiet. It was here that Cleaver received his first taste of war on the Western Front. Writing to his family at home, he noted, "We are 25 miles from the firing line and can hear the guns booming day and night. France is a beautiful country, just like being at home. By the time you've received this letter, I shall no doubt be in the firing line, potting at square heads. As long as I can pot a couple, I will be satisfied, even if they do pot me." Shortly after writing, Cleaver's unit was tasked with assisting a tunnelling company to dig a mine under German lines around the Cordonneries salient, south of Armentières. At the end of May, Cleaver and his comrades experienced their first major attack when the Germans bombarded their lines and raided their trenches. Though the Pioneers suffered many casualties, Cleaver was unharmed. After the raid, the division was moved south to the Somme. In July, they endured some of the heaviest shelling experienced by Australian units during the war at Pozières. As Cleaver wrote to his family, "We have been very busy lately, strafing Fritz, and right well did we get it too. I was very lucky. I got my helmet all dinted in with shrapnel, and the sole of my boot ripped off with a bullet, and a crack with a bit of high explosive which bruised my leg. I think I was terribly lucky. I am sitting here writing in a beautiful place with rows and rows of trees and the birds singing. You would never think that there was a war on, but a few miles away, the ground is ploughed up for miles as with a giant plough, where the shells have been falling and the trees are all dead. We are going into action again very soon. A man is stiff to get knocked, but it's all in the game. That's why, if anything happens to me, remember me to my friends. I don't want you to worry too much." This letter would be Private Cleaver's last. Days later, his unit returned to the trenches and was caught in the fighting around Mouquet Farm. On the 21st of August, Cleaver was killed during a bombardment. His comrade, Corporal Palmer, wrote to Cleaver's family, "Gordon and some others were going up to dig a trench when a piece of high explosive shell hit him in the chest, from the effects of which he died in a short time. One of his mates was with him at the time and told me the details of it all. Now that I have time to think, I often wonder how any of us got through it all. The fighting at Pozières was hellish while it lasted." Private Gordon Cleaver was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Gordon Herbert Cleaver, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.